Welcome to another edition of Mntom'nyama Playbook. I'm your host, Mntom'nyama. In this video, I am going to showcase one of the members of Mntom'nyama Playbook, namely Visa. I am going to show you why Visa is a great company to invest in and why I myself own shares of this wonderful company. Now remember that as a monthly subscriber of Mntom'nyama, you will receive a market analysis of the performance of the JSE and US stock markets so that you stay up to date with current events that are shaping the markets. You will also receive 2 deep dive reports of the top 1% companies in the world to invest in, and you will receive them in the form of a video like this one, and you will be included in our WhatsApp community where you'll get to interact with myself directly and other like-minded investors, and you'll be able to track my movements in the market as you'll be notified whenever I buy or sell. Now, this package is for the individual who says, Mzamo, I just don't have the time to do all the research for me. Please do all the work for me. And that is exactly what I do. I do all the work for you, I present it on a silver platter, and you decide whether you invest or not. The choice is always totally up to you. So don't delay. Get in touch with me. Contact details are in the description below. Let's get going. Visa is a digital payments technology company listed in the New York Stock Exchange. It is in the financials sector under the credit services industry. Now, just because it is listed under credit services, it does not mean that Visa is a credit card company, because it is not, as we will discuss later. I classify Visa as both predictable and growth stock. Now, it's very rare that you'll find a business that is both predictable, meaning that it's got consistent profits, and high growth, 20% and above. Normally, a business would be predictable, but low growth, or will be growing very fast, but be very inconsistent in its profits. But Visa has got both of 2 worlds, and that is why I like it so much, because I get to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. As I alluded earlier, I own shares of Visa. I have been holding these shares for 1.5 years now, and currently I'm up 21,000 rands. Now, before we talk about Visa and what they do, let's first discuss what Visa does not do. There are 4 misconceptions about Visa that I would like to dispel. Number 1, Visa does not issue cards. It is the banks that issue credit and debit cards. All Visa does is put their logo on the card and actually charge the banks royalty fees for use of their brand on their cards. Visa does not lend money to people. It is the banks that lend money to people. Now, because Visa does not lend any money to anybody, it means they have no credit risk. And a business that has no credit risk is a low-risk business. And that is music to us as investors, because we are investing in a business which is low risk. Visa does not charge fees to merchants. More about that later. They don't earn interest from late payments. Again, it is the banks that earn interest from late payments, because it is the banks that lend money to people in the first place. Okay, now that we have discussed what Visa does not do, so who is Visa and what do they do? Let's look at their profile. In a nutshell, Visa is an electronic payments technology company that facilitates payment transactions through its global electronic payment network called VisaNet. Founded in 1958, Visa has grown to become one of the world's leaders in digital payments. Through its global network called VisaNet, it facilitates global payments between consumers and businesses. And if you look at their ecosystem, you will see that their core products are credit, debit, and prepaid cards. Their primary method that they use for payments is tap to pay, tokenization, and click to pay. They facilitate payment transactions between person to person, big business to consumer, big business to big business to small business, and payment transactions between government and consumers. They also have other value-added services like risk and identity solutions, open banking. They provide advisory services, issuing solutions, and acceptance solutions. So you can see they have quite a well-diversified portfolio of products and services. So how does the whole process go? How does the payment process go? Let's have a look. It is divided into two sections. We have the authorization part, where the transaction is either approved or rejected, no funds are transferred during this phase. And we have the second part, which is the clearance and settlement part, where actual funds are transferred between the banks for payment. And this is the portion where Visa makes its money. So let's have a look at how the process goes. Let's start with the authorization part. So you as the customer, you go into a shop and you see something you like and you buy it using your Visa card. The store or the shop that you buy the goods from processes the transaction and sends it to its own bank called African Bank or acquiring bank in this regard. African Bank verifies the information and processes it to VisaNet, which is the network that Visa uses. Visa checks everything that everything is above board and then contacts the issuing bank, which is the customer bank, and in this example is called Standard Bank. Standard Bank, the bank of the customer, verifies the account information, make sure that there is sufficient funds in the account, and then either approves or rejects the transaction. But in this example, we will assume that Standard Bank finds that everything is in order, there is sufficient funds in the account, and therefore approves the transaction. The approval message is now cascaded back from Standard Bank through Visa to African Bank, and then African Bank relays the message to the shop that the transaction has been approved. The shop says everything is good. The customer receives his goods or services and goes home happy. So that concludes the first part of the process, which is the authorization part. And bear in mind, no funds have been transferred or exchanged so far. Now we go into the second phase, which is the settlement, which is a clearance and settlement part. This is where Visa makes its money, and this is where the funds are exchanged. So later on, after the transaction, Standard Bank bills the customer the full amount of the transactions that the customer made. And then Standard Bank, through VisaNet, pays African Bank the full value of the transactions and charges African Bank a fee called interchange fee. This is a fee the Standard Bank will charge African Bank, which is the bank of the shop, for all the troubles that Standard Bank goes through. Once the African Bank has received the funds, African Bank, which is the acquiring bank for the shop, will pay the merchant or will pay the shop the amount of the transactions that were made, minus a fee, obviously, called the merchant discount rate. This is the fee that African Bank will charge the shop for services rendered. And this is where Visa makes its money. Visa takes a cut here and takes a cut there. Now the percentages may seem small, but because of the sheer large volume of transactions that take place on a daily basis, Visa actually makes a lot of money through these services, as we will see in the next slide. Now Visa has 4 streams of revenue. We have spoken about the first one, which is a data processing fee. This is the fee that Visa charges the banks for services rendered for authorization, clearing, settlement, and access to network. Basically, these are transactions that's where Visa makes sure that everything is above board and make sure that the payment system works efficiently. And they charge about 0.1% of the transaction amount, which in 2022 financial year amounted to $14.4 billion. The second fee that they charge is the service fee. This is a fee charged to member banks for use of the Visa network. And in the financial year ended 2022, they made $13.4 billion. They also charge fees for international transactions. These are cross-border transactions that are happening between banks in different countries using different currencies. In 2022, they made close to $10 billion. They also charge other fees for value-added services like licensing fees for use of the Visa brand or technology, and fees for account holder services, certification, and licensing. And that revenue was about $2 billion. So all in all, in the 22 financial year, they made a net of $29.3 billion for all the services that they render. Lastly, Visa has a good share buyback program. As you can see from the consistent decline in the number of shares outstanding. Now, companies give back to their shareholders either through paying them dividends or through buying back its own shares. When a company buys back its own shares, it reduces the number of shares available for trading and hence increases the value of the shares remaining in circulation, making the shares that I'm holding more valuable without me having to add more shares into it. For example, let's say we have this piece of the pie. And this piece of the pie has got 6 slices, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now this piece of the pie has got 6 slices. Let's say you own the first slice, and you are sharing this pie with 5 other people. Now Visa comes, buys back slice number 6 and slice number 5. So what you have now is still the same business, it's still the same pie, but now it has only 4 slices. And those slices are bigger. Still the same pie, but the slices are now bigger because now there's only four pieces. So that's what share buyback does. It reduces the number of shares available, and so that the shares that the shareholders own become more valuable without the shareholders having to do anything. I hope you guys understand that. And that brings us to the conclusion of part 1 of our deep dive video. I hope you enjoyed it and were informed. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with your friends and family. And I will see you on the next video, which is part 2.